If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new album in the description. The Weeknd just released his new album, Dawn FM, and I listened to this, I gave it my first listen, and this is my first impression of this thing. This is the first thoughts that ran through my mind as I went through this track list, so let's jump straight into it. I was very excited for this album. After Hours was my favorite record of 2020, so y'all know that my expectations were high ever since we knew that this was going to be a sequel to After Hours and it was going to have that 80s sound again and have an underlying story. I was completely just excited for this thing, and I'm still not 100% into the lore, into the storyline of this thing and how it connects to After Hours. I think that is something that's going to take me a couple of more listens and a couple of Reddit posts and YouTube videos to fully understand, but I would love to talk to you guys about that in the days and weeks to come, especially on the Discord and on the live stream, so make sure you're a part of that in the comments down below. But let's actually look at the music side of things and see if this is on par with After Hours or if this is even better. So this thing has 16 tracks, which is more than After Hours, and I don't want to compare this thing to After Hours too much, but obviously there is a connection, so we are going to have to do that. Again, the same 80s sound, and I love that. This time around, a lot lighter though. After Hours to me seemed a lot darker. That also has to do with the underlying context, of course. In After Hours, he is committing all these sins and then regretting them, while on here he's trying to find salvation for them and be free again. So obviously that has to do with it. So this album is a lot lighter in tone than After Hours, but it still is as grand as After Hours. Let me say that. Some of the transitions on here are just beautiful. From How Do I Make You Love Me to Take My Breath, for example, incredible transition. Also, I think from Is There Someone Else to Starry Eyes and then Every Angel Is Terrifying, all of these transition into each other so well, and it just feels like you're listening to this full body of work, to this full masterpiece again, like I did on After Hours, or like anyone did with After Hours. So that again is there, and I love that. That is what I was looking for. In terms of the actual tracks themselves, I of course have a couple of favorites myself. For example, Is There Someone Else or Every Angel Is Terrifying. Those instrumentals are just crazy. I could just listen to the instrumental version of this and just ascend to heaven. Like it is like that. And I've had a couple of those on After Hours as well. So again, we got this. We of course have, some lighter tracks like the one with the Tyler feature, and also some darker tracks like Sacrifice, for example, or Don't Break My Heart. But all in all, the tone is lighter, as I just said. Getting to the features real quick, I thought the Tyler and Lil Wayne feature, which were the only two features on here, were used pretty good. I was expecting them to maybe be a bit more interwoven into the track. The two were just like verses on the track. I thought that maybe he could have used them in a way that they would add a little more, but thematically they were on point. They were rapping about what was actually going on the track and not just a random verse that artists give out sometimes. But of course my expectations for these were pretty high because on After Hours we didn't have any features, and if he picks out these two, then I thought they were going to be like very special, and they are. But I just thought that maybe he could have put them into the track a little bit more and not just be like a second verse. But that is just because of my expectations. This is they're very good features, very good tracks all in all, so no you can't complain about that. By far my favorite aspect of this album though is the sound selection. From the first track, Gasoline, well, we have that Dawn FM intro, but the actual first track is Gasoline, all the way to the last one, Less Than Zero. It is incredibly crisp and sharp sound selection. He utilizes these 80s synthesizers and sometimes horns and stuff like that so well that if you would have just I want to listen to this album again, but like in a quiet room with headphones on and eyes closed and just fully immersed in this experience, because even now listening to it, you can pick out so many details just from the sounds, just from the instruments used, that they themselves tell a whole story. And I've talked about this in my expectations video for Dawn FM, but with After Hours I had this very distinct experience where I was in a car ride and I listened to After Hours with my headphones on, with my eyes closed, and that was the best experience that I ever had listening to an album. So that's why After Hours was also so special to me, and listening to this album I can tell that I could get the same experience again from Dawn FM, and that just truly makes me happy. So the sound selection on this thing is just crazy. You know, he probably went through a bunch of instruments, a bunch of sounds, a bunch of different instrumentals just to pick out the ones that are the best, and those landed on this album. And there's not like a song that you would say, oh, this is just like a whatever song, it was just like a filler. All of these tracks have their own purpose, have their own characteristics, their own personality, and that is something that I'm missing a lot nowadays. So I'm truly grateful and happy that we got that on this album. And I just want to say how much I appreciate The Weeknd for this. You know, he's an artist. He's probably, after this album drops, he's going to be the most listened to artist in the world on Spotify. I think right now he's like number 2 or 3. So he's going to be the most listened to artist on Spotify after this. And for the biggest artist in the world in terms of streaming to still drop an album that doesn't sound like the rest out there, that's not just like a trap beat with some R&B vocals on there, something he could very well do, something that he would make a lot of money off of, but for him to sit down and actually care about doing this in a creative way and caring so much about innovation or re-innovation, now reinventing that 80s sound and putting a modern touch to it, I think it's just so commendable. And for him to take this risk to drop an album that, you know, not everybody might like, I think that is just really commendable and deserves all my respect for The Weeknd right here, because this man just came through with another album that, you know, is timeless. We can honestly say in like 10-20 years that this could be considered a classic, definitely. So Dawn FM is really everything that I wanted after the first listen. I know that going into this album again a couple of more times and re-listening to this many more times, that I'm gonna find my, you know, cherry pick tracks that I'm gonna go back to and just re-listen over and over again. And as I said, all of these tracks have their own personality, have their own character, so you can just really go in here and pick your favorites, not in a way that you would as in like a Flooding the Market, you know, playlist type album, but actually in an album where you're like, okay, I respect every track on here because they're so individual, but this one I like the most, but I see how it fits into the bigger context of this thing. As I said, to understand all the lore and the story behind this, I want to know a lot more from you guys. Let me know what theories you might have in the comments. I already got a lot of interesting theories about this album in my video or in the comments under my last videos I made on this, so definitely let me know what you know about the lore, what you know about the underlying story, because that is something that I'm really interested in. I'm already like on the Weeknd subreddit to, you know, get all the info, but you know, y'all guys always come through with the most interesting stuff, so let me know. So that's just my opinions, my thoughts, my first listen impressions. Not want to know what you thought after you listened to this thing the first time, and as I just said, all your thoughts, all your theories, let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and you'll take care.